Beat 'em ups, a popular genre back in the early 90s, but taken down a peg when fighting games hit the market. The cooperative fighting of several hundred palette-swapped enemies made for interesting but fairly brainless gameplay. The beat 'em up is still alive and well in the free-to-play MMO market, and that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about today. This is the MMO Grinder, and it's time to look at Pie Story. Developed by Encony and published by Area Games, Pie Story is a cute 2D beat-em-up MMO with simple classes, great animation, colorful worlds, crisp graphics, and... fuck. I don't know why I bothered with that fake-out. It's not like y'all can't read the title of this episode, but it does bring me to a few points I did want to address. Free-to-play MMOs can be fickle. A game you may love to death could be killed by lack of interest, developer or publisher support, or even licensing issues. This is also the reason I will not do full episodes of MMO Grinder on games still in closed beta. See, I was a closed beta tester on Pie Story, and I loved it. But when open beta was released, they tinkered with it way too much. XP was crap, the players were weakened, and the cash shop was never implemented, dooming it from the start. I have no idea why this happened, but a good game became a bad game, and the title vanished. Pie Story was supposed to be my third episode back when I first planned the series, but its removal caused me to bump up Maple Story to that spot. So I thought we'd take a look at a title that's just enough like Pie Story to lessen that pain a bit. This is the MMO Grinder, and it's time to look at Dungeon Fighter Online. Designed by NeoPle and published by Nexon, yes, that Nexon, Dungeon Fighter Online is a 2D MMO homage to the beat-em-up genre, combining elements of both types of games. Released way back in 2005 in Korea, the game found its way to American shores in beta form back in 2009, with an official release in June of 2010. The game was well received by many, and the time I've spent with the game has been fun, but not without issue. The story of DFO is... well, I don't really know. It doesn't seem to be outlined anywhere. Of course, how many times have you played a beat-em-up for its story? There's some things out there about the world of Arad and the dragon tyrant Bakal, but I find myself skipping over what's given to me in-game. In any case, it's there if you really want it. Alright, let's begin. The graphics are completely two-dimensional and very reminiscent of the SNES and Genesis era of gaming, but with more of an arcade quality. The art style resembles a fantasy-styled Streets of Rage, which I guess would be Golden Axe. There's only one option for your resolution: bad. Keeping in theme with the SNES era, the game runs in 640 by 480, which is, at the very least, convenient for recording. Hell, even if you don't have something like Fraps, you can record with the game's own built-in recorder, which still thinks default YouTube videos run in 320 by 240, so if you want good res, you can choose the better quality recording options. The art style is a lot more, well, it's very cartoony, so I can't say realistic, but it's hardly cutesy. Player characters, NPCs, and enemies are very proportionate, no smiling mushrooms here. There's even a bit of blood, but I can barely call the game gory, as you'll actually have to be looking for the blood splatter to notice it. And when defeated, most enemies just shatter into rocks. There's a couple of annoyances I wanted to point out. First off would be the zoom-in effect. While certainly dynamic looking, it becomes very disorienting. What happens often during a combo, the camera will zoom in very close to your character as you're fighting and quickly zoom away. This is extremely jarring, made worse by the fact that the zooming seems completely random at times. I've had minutes go by without a zoom effect and then suddenly get bombarded by 5 in a row during a more hard-to-control fight. Luckily, you can turn this option off. Another issue is what I would call invisible objects, where some foreground objects, like rocks, will vanish when you stand near them. In the chaos of battle, there's a good chance you'll have this happen and then wonder why you can't move your character downward. The game is also a big fan of the palette swap, so expect to fight a ton of the same-looking goblins of various color and accessorization when first starting out. But foremost, you'll be having flashbacks to the arcade brawler days. It doesn't help that the fighter not only has some of the moves made popular by Blaze of Streets of Rage, but looks quite similar in design. Notice that they of course had to add a bit of bounce to the fighter too. You know, so we could have 2D animated jiggle physics in a beat-em-up. It makes you wonder how anyone could take this further. Yes, are you reserving any copies of Dragon's Crown? Dragon's Crown. PS3. Yes, that's exactly why I want it. Shut up. Alright, I'll be right there. I don't even own a PS3. kind of a tough one for me. The music is varied but samey, if that makes any sense. Some stuff sounds very fantasy-like and orchestrated, especially in towns. Dungeons tracks are usually far more intense, featuring heavy guitar rock or beat-driven techno. While I certainly don't mind the genres, there's one major issue. The songs are repetitive as hell. They play for roughly 1 to 2 minutes before looping over again, and even if you're speedrunning through a dungeon, there's a good chance you'll hear it at least 3 times. So there's a decent chance you might want to provide your own music. However, the music given is usually very fitting of the action, and it's really good. It just happens to wear thin. Sound is exactly what you would expect from an arcade beat-em-up. There's punches, slashes, thuds, and it's very fitting to the game. The game features a bit of limited voice work for a lot of player characters and NPCs, but when I say limited, well, expect to hear Delilah say, "It's so good to see you," and the female gunner say "finished" and "finally" a bit more often than you'd like. Damn it, Nexon, you never fail to annoy me. Just like MapleStory, you have to load the launcher through the website. The first thing you'll notice is that it takes forever to get started. When I click play on my machine, I'm forced to watch the hack guards load, the launcher do an update, and then a black rectangle for several minutes before the game decides to start. Make sure you log in the minute you want to play, because if Nexon feels you've been logged onto the site and idle for too long, it will kick you out, and might not even let you know until the game is loaded, forcing you into the process again. From what I've seen, there's only one server in this game, called Kane, with an east and west side, while the rest is split into channels. A rather ingenious thing they've done here is to divide the channels by level, and even better still is to provide bonus XP on those channels when choosing dungeons appropriate to those levels. After choosing a channel, you'll be able to select your character. I say select and not create, as every character class will look the same, and all you'll be able to do is create a name. From there you can choose a class, each with a set of subclasses and their own limited selection of weapons. Classes are as follows. First, the basic class of the Slayer, a sword-wielding melee fighter. The Slayer relies mostly on swords and can also wield sticks. Classified as easy, with well-rounded stats, it's a perfect beginner class. Next up is the Fighter, a more close-range melee class with high speed and attack. They're ranked at normal difficulty. Fighters use fist-based weapons like gloves and tonfas. Next class is the Gunner, available in both male and female forms. The classes are virtually identical, save for a slight difference in their defense, range, and speed, and both are also ranked as easy. Each have use of a variety of guns or cannons. After that we have the Mage, a small elf-like child ranked at the hardest difficulty, even being the only class to come with a disclaimer, as they are really tough to use early on. As the name suggests, they rely mostly on magic skills. Mages wield staves and polearms. Next class up is Priest. Unsurprisingly, the game's healer class, yet surprisingly the slow bruisers of the game. Ranked as normal difficulty, priests tend to punch their opponents, only finishing their combos with a variety of religious-themed heavy objects, like wooden crosses, giant beaded rosaries, and totem poles, but also having the choice of a battle axe and my favorite weapon, the scythe. Lastly is the Thief, unsurprisingly the high-attack speed demons with lower defense and range. Ranked as normal difficulty, they wield knives for quick combo attacks. For those wondering why I chose the Fighter as my main character class when I'm so partial to the Scythe as a weapon, it's because I prefer a fast, close-range fighter in beat-em-ups. And you clearly don't know my character selection hierarchy. Once finished, choose a name and you're taken to a training dungeon with an overview of the controls. The game controls simple enough. Arrow keys move you around the field. Double tap and then hold left or right to run in that direction. The C key jumps, the X key does normal attacks, and the Z key is used for special attacks. The game always starts you out with at least your basic special attack, which is used by pressing Z with no other directions pressed. But as you begin to learn new skills, you can press arrow combinations with Z to perform different attacks. For example, for the Fighter, holding forward while pressing Z next to an enemy performs a suplex grab, while pressing down forward and then Z has her throw a Hadouken-style fireball. If at any time you have a hard time keeping track of your skills, you can assign some of the more complex ones to the preset hotkeys of A, S, D, F, G, and H, and if you so desire, F1 through F6. There are also hotkeys specifically for your items, labeled 1 through 6. Once in a town, you cannot use any attacks or run, but can walk around looking for quests, NPC shops, and dungeons. To speak with an NPC, click on them with the mouse and a window will open. At any time, you can hit the N key to open your map, which will lay out the NPCs, dungeon locations, and available quests. To find a dungeon, look for the pair of cross swords with a name over them. When starting out, you'll only have 2 available to you, Lorien and Grand Flores. Lorien is the newbie dungeon that helps you understand how the game works, and Grand Flores is where the real game starts. To get to a dungeon, simply walk to that section of town, and you'll usually notice a large group of people standing in the area right outside of it. But walk into the next area to be taken to the Dungeon Select screen. Here you can choose your dungeon and any difficulty of that dungeon you've unlocked. Now I'm going to tell you how a simple dungeon run works, because once you've done one, you've done all of them. When starting, you'll be placed in one of a few starting areas on the map. At this point, kill all the enemies you see in the area, and once you've killed them all, the next available areas will open up. Look for a blue door on one of the 4 walls of the area. For example, for Lorien and Grand Flores, the door will be an archway covered in runes. Any other time the door will be gated off. Your map will also provide the location of the exits. From here you have 2 choices, either try to make your way over to the boss as quickly as possible, or clear out the entire dungeon for the best chance of getting rewards. Once the boss is killed, the dungeon immediately ends. You can tell the location of the boss by the red skull on the map, and if the door leading to the next path is red, it's the boss room. When fighting, you can break most objects you see to gain items, and if you're lucky, there are multicolored fairies, each with their own abilities. For example, red ones replenish your HP, blue ones replenish mana, and green replenishes both. There are other colors with different bonuses available, so always keep an eye out for them. You'll notice that a lot of loot drops too. In order to pick up this loot, stand over it and press X. If you're noticing that X is the same button as your attacks, then you're noticing a major problem in this game's loot system. Enemies are constantly dropping stuff in this game, so when you're fighting a large group of enemies and a few of them start dropping stuff, your character will always default to picking up the stuff in lieu of attacking. I've had many an enemy get off a cheap shot on me because of this, so be well aware of it. If you happen to lose a life, you can use a life token to start over in the same area without being forced to start the dungeon over. You only have 10 tokens to start, and every day a certain amount are replenished if you happen to go under that total. You can even purchase extra tokens in the cash shop if you're seriously that terrible at this game. When you reach the boss room, the boss will be the only character with a title over its head, and you can choose to either blitz run the target or kill off any other enemies in the room before focusing on it. Whenever you hit the boss, its health bar will be largely displayed on top of the screen. The second the final blow is delivered, the game will enter slow motion, any remaining enemies will die, and you'll be given a rank for completing the dungeon. Your rank grants bonuses solely on how many combos you've performed, and grants you bonus experience for the higher tiers. Ranks start out as high as triple S rank for a perfect or near perfect run, running down to double S, and then SRank, a rank, Brank, Crank, Drank, E-rank, and the dreaded Frank. See how stupid that looks when you put the letter before the word? Once the experience is totaled, you'll see a selection of cards that contain bonus items. The top 4 are free and the bottom 4 have a price. You can click on a card in each row if you wish, but if you don't click on anything, one card from the top will be automatically assigned to you. The rewards you'll receive become greater depending on how many of the special bonus monsters you've found and defeated. After that, you'll be in a safe room with a campfire where 1 of 2 people will be standing next to you. These are the shopkeepers, Delilah and Gabriel. Delilah's the default store, only sells potions, while Gabriel appears more rarely and offers special discounted items. In each shop you can choose to sell anything you've picked up or don't want. Keep in mind that a lot of stuff can be used for quests and professions, but since professions aren't available to level 60 and many quest items can be obtained in a dungeon run or 2, it's best to offload what you don't need, since loot space is not only limited by item, but also by weight. If you max out your weight, you won't be able to pick up anything else. Another thing to do in the shop is repair your items. Similar to World of Warcraft, your items degrade depending on use or damage taken, so make sure to repair after each dungeon. The amount of money needed is inconsequential, so there's no reason not to do this each time. After that, you can stick around for a bit, replay the dungeon, choose another, or head back to town. If you're on any quest, you can choose to complete them in this safe room, as well as take the next step in the quest, but you can do the same in town, which you'll automatically be kicked out to if you take too long in here. Town is a good place to get used to, as this is where you'll find most of the quests. Once you start on a chain, you can usually do the next portion immediately afterward without having to revisit the NPC who gave it to you, but there are exceptions. Hit Q to look at the quests you have, but keep in mind you can only hold 10 at a time. You can also check on what new quests are available by hitting the W key and searching what's relevant to your current dungeon. In addition to the standard item gathering and enemy hunting quests, there are a few exclusive to this type of gameplay, like beating the dungeon in a certain time limit with a certain combo rating, or even without being hit a set number of times. One other thing to do in towns is to check with your class trainer. The trainer will have a list of skills which you can purchase with your skill points. Skill points are given out with your experience and occasionally as quest rewards, so there's no way to purchase and upgrade every single skill. Make sure you choose only the ones that you'd like to use. At level 18, you'll be given the chance to advance your class to a certain subclass, which will unlock more powerful skills within a certain subclass. Doing this also resets your skill points in full, and you can reassign them accordingly. Keep in mind that some skills require you to be a certain level with another skill before you can unlock it. In order to do any of this, you might be prompted to put in a goblin pad pin. It's an extra form of security in the form of an annoying mini-game, but if you're worried about your account being hacked, it's a decent option. In the Goblin Pad, you'll have to guide the Black Goblin past a pair of Red Goblins to a set of numbered huts. Each time you reach a hut, you go back to the beginning. The huts are rearranged, and the number is entered at the bottom. Do this 4 times and pick complete entry to set the pin, and remember you'll have to enter that pin when you first try to sell something or set up your skill points after having been logged out. There are a lot of RPG elements in this game, like equipping weapons and armor, but one in particular that gets on my nerves. While you don't need all the best stats and gear to do well in this game, as it's all action-based, and someone with enough skill can get by just fine, they still incorporate random chance elements, the foremost being a chance for blocks and misses. While it makes perfect sense for an enemy in a defensive position to take less damage or block, it's misses that baffle me. Some of the enemies are hard enough to hit, because they only have to slightly sidestep you to avoid you. It's frustrating as hell when you put together a great combo only to have your finisher pop with a missed when you've clearly hit them. Perhaps this keeps people from fighting outside their level so they can't stick and move their way throughout the game, but you'd think they find a better way around that, like, oh, I don't know, the goddamn dungeon level restrictions? Okay, it makes a bit of sense for that to pop up on a ranged class, but melee, that's just douchey. The grind in the game comes from just how often you'll be visiting the same dungeons. It's not uncommon you'll find quests that will ask you to head back into a dungeon you've completed dozens of times just to try it on a difficulty you've already completed. Sometimes it'll even ask you to kill the same boss 2 or 3 times. You'll be sick of seeing the palette-swapped goblins, minotaurs, and feral cat people of Grand Flores long before you'll ever be allowed to venture elsewhere. There is a bit more variety at higher levels, but then you'll be grinding those enemies over and over again. It is a very casual game, though, and one of the few that actually rewards you for not playing it. Originally, a system called Fatigue was in place that kept you from playing dungeons endlessly, but that was removed in favor of Blitz Points, which reward you bonus XP for the more dungeons you play, but take a severe toll on your weapon and armor degradation, as well as charging you much more to repair them. There's also a reward given to those who haven't logged into the game for a few weeks called Returned Hero, which grants you bonuses and a title that boosts your stats for a few days. Of course, if you know anything about beat-em-ups, it's that they get very old very fast if you're playing them alone. So how do the other people in this game fare? I'll be honest, I don't have too much to talk about here. The people in this game are generally quiet. Sure, you'll get the jerks, the gold spammers, and the people who blindly invite you to their parties or guilds, but I can't expect the community to be too chatty when the game is this chaotic. I mean, what kind of strategy would you need to impart? Punch that guy! Okay, now go punch that one! Wait, which one are you punching? Ah, that's okay, just keep doing that! As I said, before the room right before the dungeon selection screen is what I call the lobby area, where most of the people will be meeting. If you're looking for a group, this is the place to be, but good luck getting anyone to answer you. The dungeons work slightly different in a group as well. For example, money is spread among the party, and items are automatically rolled on and distributed among the players. While enemies seem to get a boost in their health, it's pretty inconsequential, and a group of 4 will completely tear apart an area while you spend the time trying to figure out where the hell your character is. When a room is cleared, you'll all need to head through a door to move on, but if 3 people are standing at door 1 and the other guy wants to go to door 2, or is busy running back and forth for no reason, a countdown will appear and automatically take the party through door 1. Just hope at least 3 people in your maximum party of 4 have some sort of sense. You'll get an XP bonus for playing in large parties, so keep that in mind. There's a few other community activities too, one being the town attacks, where enemies will invade a town and the entire server will have to come together to defend it. When a town attack is underway, you'll see a time limit, a status bar, and a score for your player. Also, the music will be different and the town will be crawling with enemies. In order to participate, hold down the left control key and click on an enemy to be taken to a sub-area. Here you'll have to fight a number of enemies. If you win, you'll be given a point, and if you lose, you'll be taken outside as a ghost and won't be able to move or try again for about 20 seconds or so. There's an arena-style PvP section too that you can access at level 10. You can enter the PvP arenas by choosing Arena from the Contents menu. PvP can be extremely tough as there is a ton of moves and combos to contend with, and the arena matchups can be greatly mismatched. I've seen good players take out other players nearly 10 levels ahead of them, so once again, a lot of it comes down to skill. This is a game designed for multiple people to play, yet it's so easy to go it alone that I don't recommend it when you're just there to grind. Even the King's level dungeons suggest that you go at it with a full party can be soloed if you're not a complete idiot. This game will probably be best played among a group of friends and over a voice chat. I'm not going to touch on the cash shop too much as there's really not much to look at. The foremost items will be the alternate costumes. This is the only way your character will have any identity versus all the other players of this game, so for those who desperately want some form of individuality, you're going to have to pay for it. It seems silly, too. While it makes sense to have the option to choose a different top or bottom to your character, when you start getting into things like earrings and necklaces, it's literally the difference in color of 4 pixels. There's a reason you might actually be stupid enough to pick those items, though, and that's the ability to add a stat boost to those items. This gives the game the unfortunate implication of being one of those games that makes you more powerful with the more stuff you buy. Fine for dungeon grinding, horrible for PvP. If you pick a costume item, you can also choose how long you want to have it, with the option to rent it for a month, 3 months, or make it permanent, depending on how much cash you want to drop on it. Costumes are in a constant state of flux, as there's only ever seems to be 3 pages of inventory, yet you will see hundreds of costumes in town that aren't available in the shop. It suggests that nothing is available to purchase forever, so if you want something, you'd better nab it when you see it. Must suck for people who rented it. The other items consist of niceties, like the ability to reset your SP anytime you want, in case you find yourself unimpressed with your current skill set, or put too many points into the wrong skill. There's also your basic storage space upgrades and personal stores. As I stated earlier, you can also purchase life tokens, but unless you are absolutely horrendous at this game, it's hard-pressed that you'll find yourself needing them. Remember, this is a Nexon game, so you can use any points you might have had left over once you've inevitably quit playing MapleStory. If you love brawlers or the old-school beat-em-up, you need to check this game out. While there are a few flaws, I could say the same about a lot of games in this genre, and this game holds together well enough to compete with them. There's a flash demo available to those who want a small taste of the game before downloading it, but I've honestly never gotten it to work, so I can't tell you how it compares to the actual game. It's still worth a download, unless this isn't something you'd want to play in the first place. Here's my final rating. Fans of the old-school brawler will love this game. If you're looking for a fun, casual MMO to play with a few friends, this is one of the best pick-up-and-play games out there. The casual atmosphere doesn't really lend itself to your full involvement, so you'll probably want to play in short bursts. I can only really suggest to pay for this game if you're willing to spend a lot of time with it. As a casual player, it's hard to justify dropping as much cash as they want for things as simple as costume changes, but if you need the stat boost for your character, that's the easiest way to get them. Besides the extra tokens and the skill resets, there's really not much else to look at. If you've never liked the beat-em-up genre, or want something involving, complex, and immersive, you're not going to find it here. If you hate doing the same thing over and over, you are not going to like this, but granted, I could say the same about any beat-em-up. The lack of customization, both to the graphics, keyboard layout, and characters themselves, might actually deter a lot of players. So if it's important to you to have some sort of individuality without ever having to pay for it, I'd look elsewhere. Next time, I'll look at a game with a little less combat. Like, none. Not until it's out of closed beta. Oh, what do you know? It is.